Hey there, everybody. How's it going? Boy, it's been a long time since I've had this as my background there. This here used to be my studio. This right here at the table, because I old kitchen and excuse me, and did a lot of videos up here, and so I'm kind of stoked to be back up here at the old table with you guys today. Today is a Q&A day. I did in our community, by the way. If you're maybe new to the channel, we do have a community. If you're part of the, if you're subscribed, when I post in the community there, you're going to get questions or polls or things like that, and that's going to be able to help connect us a little bit better. So if you're interested in that, please be sure to subscribe. Don't mind me, I'm just fixing this camera a little bit because I am kind of OCD about that, about having the camera just right. Okay, that's better. And so we had a couple of questions today. There we go. Now I'm feeling better about that. We had a couple of questions today that we're going to dive into today. So feel free, by the way, to make sure and let me know that you're here by commenting, right? Let me know maybe your name, what church you're at, maybe what state you're from, your social security number, credit card. Just kidding. I don't want to know those things. Don't post those things on the internet. That's a terrible idea. And so today, like I said, we're going to do some Q&A, but please let me know that you're here. Let me know what your role is in ministry. Maybe you're a volunteer or bivocational or full-time, any of those things. And I would just love to know what your role and responsibilities are. And we have some great questions today. We're going to jump into those. I want to let you know about a couple of things that are going on in the world of me. And that is several things. One is I'm continuing to speak and train, talking to youth ministries. Got to speak at Beechwood Baptist last week. It was a tremendous time. It was a great opportunity to share with some young people. Also, doing some more writing. So I have a series that just came out a couple weeks ago called Masterpiece. I hope that you'll check that out. It is a great 5-week series about changing kids' mindsets about considering themselves masterpieces. God don't make no junk. He only makes masterpieces. And there'll be some links in the description about that if you'd love to do that series. Also did a series called Stand Alone Together, which is really dealing with the subject of loneliness. And there's nothing wrong with being alone. There are issues with loneliness, and students and people in general, by the way, feel that way. So, recently, I did that little post about anxiety and depression, and some of that stems just out of loneliness. It stems out of the fact that we feel like we're abandoned, like we're that sometimes we're not even, that God's not even with us. Sometimes we get to that place, about that pastor that wound up committing suicide. I don't know all the context for that, except that he was dealing with and suffering from anxiety and depression. But I imagine somewhere along in there, loneliness played a part. And Stand Alone Together is a 4-week series focusing on dealing with the struggle of loneliness. And it really looks at loneliness from 3 points of view, 3 characters. And then the last session is kind of a wrap-up of how the church, how our youth ministries can be part of the solution, right, in belonging, in creating a belonging environment where young people don't sense or don't feel the, the crushing of loneliness, but they feel like they're with you, they feel like they're a part of what you're doing, and they don't feel like they're going through life alone, and that's kind of what that's about. So if you do have, I'm going to, tackle some questions here in a second. If you do have any questions, you're free to, ask them right now, right here in the chat, which should be over here to your, I think over this way, to my right and your left, maybe. Yeah. And over in the chat area over there. And so feel free to leave your question there if you have them. Also, I'm finishing up another series called Shine a Light, which I think would be really good for Christmas. It's a 5-week session on being a light to the world, and there's 5 different kinds of lights I talk about. and it's very illustrative, and it's going to give you some great illustrations to use with your kids. They're physical. They're not just on the screen somewhere, but they're real physical ones that you can use with your youth ministry. I think will make an impact. So that's what I'm up to. And of course, if I can help you in any way, whether that's through coaching or speaking or coming to your youth ministry, if you're here in Birmingham or Atlanta or Nashville or some of those places, or you want to have me in for a retreat or a camp, then those things are available to you if you go to thediscipleproject.net. That's my website. That's my main hub there. You can go over there and find out all kinds of information and whatnot. So good. I see some people jumping in here. Please, once again, let me know that you're here. Let me know where you're from. If you're a full-time, part-time, volunteer, would love to know. And maybe what church or what state you're at. I would love to know that. All right, so the two questions we're dealing with today. Let me jump over here and, okay. Talking about two things. There was two questions here, if I can find them once again. They're in our community section, so I have to go over to the community section. So excuse me for 1 second. The questions were very good, especially and very seasonal in that regard. The questions were, I got two questions. The first question is this, and this is from Zalika Beard. And Zalika asks, how would you go about teaching the youth on Halloween? And that is, it always seems to me that the church struggles with this. I don't know why I'm shocked or amazed by about it, but I mean, there's various levels, Zalika, when we're talking about Halloween. Some churches don't care about Halloween. Some churches care too much about Halloween. They want to get into it. Now, listen, I grew up in the 80s. So, things like Halloween and other things were like a big deal. They were like, if you went trick-or-treating, you might be going to hell. And it was pretty strict, pretty stern back then. It doesn't, I think our culture has changed. I think the culture of the church has changed to where maybe that's not necessarily the major emphasis. I would love to know, you guys tell me in the comments below when you watch this later, maybe, or now, what is your church's position on Halloween? Do you absolutely 100% teach against it? Do you do harvest festivals? Do you do those kind of things to counteract those kinds of activities? Or do you ignore it? Do you say, hey, you know what? It's going to be Halloween. It's we're not going to worry about it. So there's, like I said, there's two sides, and then there's a million places in the middle that people go on. And if you're not familiar, just for the sake of a quick origin, if you look at it this way, it says the name Halloween comes from All Saints' Day celebration of the early Christian church, a day set aside for the solemn remembrance of all martyrs. All Hallows Eve, the evening before All Saints' Day, became the time of remembrance. All Hallows Eve was eventually contracted to Halloween, which became Halloween, which became Halloween. So, it has its, pagans use this celebration for various things, right? And they use it for their goals and their activities and their religious preference. And Christians, once again, can choose to look at, the underlying things. What Halloween was and what Halloween is are two different things, right? The practices, if you will, of Halloween, the jack-o'-lantern, the going out and getting candy. Yeah, a lot of that's rooted in other things, right? Rooted in some pagan traditions and things like that. But I think the intent of Halloween, and most kids are not thinking about they are following some sort of pagan tradition. I think they just want a Snickers bar. And, that was me. I just want a Snickers bar. What's your favorite candy, by the way? I would love to know that. Feel free to leave a comment. Candy bar, my favorite, Snickers. And so I've seen, once again, both extremes to this, Zalika, where you can drill deep right? I've seen it, and I'm guilty of it myself, where you want to teach all the little nuances of what Halloween is and what all the pagan traditions are. And you get into all that. And what I found was, and somebody told me this too when I was young and I was kind of getting into all that, sometimes when we get too deep into teaching on Halloween, we can actually teach kids more than they really need to know. In other words, it creates a fascination with things that are pagan, or things that are what do I say, macabre, or things that are. Hey, George from Arizona, good to see you. Glad you could join me today. You can drill down too deep into the subject, I think. This is my opinion. I think you can drill down too deep into the subject of Halloween to talk about things or reveal things, especially when you have impressionable kids like middle school kids in there who are fascinated. By the way, all this stuff is on the internet. If a kid wants to look this up, they're going to look up paganism or Halloween, and they're going to find all this stuff. What we get to do as youth pastors and youth leaders in the church is we get to set the context for Halloween, right? We get to, now, let me give you an example. When my kids were young, when Halloween would come, I would get up on that day, on Halloween, whatever day it was, and I would get up and wake up my kids. Exactly, George. For me, my kids would get up and I would sing to them. I would sing, "This is the day that the Lord has made," right? And I would just blow it up. Why? Because here's the deal for this. For me, when I look at it, the devil, people call it the devil's day. People call it all manner of things. I say the devil is a loser and doesn't get a day at all. There's no day for him. The only day set aside for him is when he gets his butt thrown in hell forever into the fiery furnace, as per Revelation. So that's the only day he gets. He doesn't get October 31st, okay? He did not make the sun to rise nor the sun to set on that day. It's still God's day. It's still the day the Lord has made. And so I'm going to rejoice and be glad. And I changed the context for my kids to understand that day, that it's Halloween. Well, it's not about being spooky, and it's not about horror movies, and it's not about, I understand that's what culture does. It creates this. But for me, I set the context that said, listen, this is the day. Hey, Merrick, glad you could join me today. Yes, you're Merrick. Thanks for joining me today. Appreciate you being here. And so I changed the context of the day. I didn't give the devil his due, so to speak. I didn't give him, this is a spooky day and this is what we're going to do. We didn't have a lot of Halloween traditions necessarily. I let my kids go trick-or-treating because in my heart and in my way, I knew that my kids wanted a Snicker bar, and I wanted their Snicker bars, because if they didn't like Snicker bars, I was going to take the Snicker bars out of their bags and I was going to eat them, okay? That's how that's going to work. So since the devil does not get a day, and since we do not spend an enormous amount of time on focusing on that, I think you can dial into things too deeply. I think you can change the focus. Now, if you wanted to, if that's the day, by the way, if that's the day in founding it, talk about All Saints Day, then why not, in teaching about Halloween, rather than focus on what the world has made it, what the culture says about it, we should fight darkness every day. Halloween shouldn't be any kind of special occasion to teach on darkness or to teach on the darkness of our culture. Halloween is just Halloween every day. If I dressed up, by the way, on any other day than Halloween and dressed up and went door to door and asked for candy, you would have me locked up. But on those days, it's not considered paganism or a pagan practice. It's just because if I did it on Halloween, it's considered that. But if we did it on any other day, nobody cares whether I'm out collecting candy. I'm just a weirdo. And so that's my thoughts on that, that if you want to teach on Halloween, then why not go back to the core? Why not go back and talk about martyrs of the Bible? Why not, the best thing sometimes to do about Halloween is ignore it, right? I have heard of Heidelberg, Merrick. I have indeed heard of Heidelberg. I'm not too familiar with it, but I am familiar with it. I am in the United States, in the state of Alabama, by the way, for those that may be wondering. And so when we talk about Halloween, when we talk about those things, sometimes the best thing to do, and I say ignore it, but once again, why make a big deal about the devil? Or look, the devil is the devil. He's the devil every day. He's not more of a devil on Halloween than he is any other day. And so when we teach on this, we can put too much emphasis on Halloween, the dark side of it, versus saying, well, instead of teaching on, look, should we be a light in the darkness every day? Yeah, not just on Halloween, right? We should be a light every day. So I guess I'm saying that don't give Halloween all this credibility. Don't give it such gravity, such gravitas. Don't hang your hat on it that the worst things that could ever happen on Halloween, which is not true. Terrible things happen every day, right? The darkness is not necessarily greater on Halloween as it is the other 364 days of the year. So if you're going to teach on Halloween, go ahead, teach maybe the original thing. Talk about All Saints Day. Talk about the martyrs from Scripture. Talk about Stephen. Talk about the Apostle Paul. Talk about the disciples. Talk about great martyrs from history. You could do a whole 4-part series on that. By the way, if you'd like me to write something about that, let me know. I think that I might be interested in something like that and writing a little lesson about that. I may do that. But once again, I do not give it full, I don't give Halloween the leverage that it wants. I simply say, okay, it's a day, I get Snickers. That's my feeling towards it. And the devil is not any stronger or any more of a devil on Halloween than he is any other day. He simply is who he is, and I fight him every day. I don't fight him more strongly on Halloween. I don't fight him. The culture that is around that is the culture year round. Halloween is just an opportunity for kids to dress up and get weird. But by the way, if you've not noticed, teenagers dress up on other days besides Halloween, especially if you have cosplayers. They dress up anyway. So, the culture, I take some of the leverage away from Halloween in that regard. If you want to teach on it, I would say, look, don't teach not being involved in dark things the other 364 days of the year as well, and not just focus on not being a part of darkness on Halloween. So that's my long answer or take on that, is maybe some ideas. So if you have some ideas, by the way, on Halloween and those things, comments down below. That's what the comment section is for. And I do want to answer another question. I've got another question here from, let's see. Oh, yeah, from Trent. Trent Antle. Trent says, what things can you do to set up your volunteer youth workers to be successful in youth ministry? That's a great question, Trent. And Trent, if you're here, feel free to respond or say hello. I would like to know. But in setting up volunteers, let me give you 4 things that I think are really kind of important here. There are, when we set up volunteers and when I have volunteers, I try to make sure that I'm pitching to them a vision, right? I don't want them to just talk about a task. There are certain people that say, okay, they need a task. That's what they get, a task. But all of my people, all the people that I train up, is I try to make sure I pitch vision to them. Why are you doing it? What are you doing is important. Why you're doing it is that much more important. You have an opportunity to impact. I was talking with my friend Chad Higgins earlier, and he brings up this great point as well. He says you have an opportunity to impact the most important generation in our history. And you're really kind of saying, look, your involvement as a volunteer is pretty important. You're impacting culture here. You're impacting a life. You're impacting the culture of this youth ministry when you invest in a young person and you help them and lead them. So I always talk about the task is important, but vision is also a much bigger part of that. I'd rather recruit somebody to a vision than recruit somebody to a task, because once the task is done, then that's it. That's done, right? But vision tends to carry over, and I want them to carry a vision in their heart when they're ministering to young people within the context of the church or even outside the church, right? The second thing is, I make sure that I have, for a volunteer to be successful, I think, they have to have clear expectations. what are you asking them to do, right? There can't be, the problem with when we don't make our expectations clear, that there's a lot of ambiguity, or I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, or how often I'm supposed to be doing it. So I would put in things like, I would like you to contact your small group, when kids are missing or whenever, once, make sure you're touching base with them, once every 6 weeks, right? Make a phone call, send an email, hit them up on social media, just connect with them and say, hey, how are you doing? How can I pray for you, right? That's an expectation. I will encourage them. It's not mandatory, but I would say make sure, once a quarter, every 6 months, go to something that they're doing. Go to their football game. Go to their drama. Go to their band recital, whatever that may be. Go and participate somehow, but create the expectation is say, look, all of this goes back to vision, right? If you have a role or a task, go ahead and write down, and keep it simple, by the way. Don't hand them like a 25-page thing of expectations. Say, look, here's the three most important things about your role as a small group leader. Yeah, are there things that I would like you to do? Here, make it 1 page at most of just saying, here's the expectations. Here's what I'm asking you. I'm asking you to serve for a whole year, September through May, 1 whole school year. And then you get summer off or whatever. But make the expectations clear about what their role is, how long their role is going to last. Any meetings they need to be a part of, like like a monthly staff meeting or something like that. But making clear expectations is important, because there's nothing more frustrating for a volunteer than to participate in your ministry and not knowing how they're going to be successful. They don't know what the expectations are. So once we create the expectations and let them know that this is kind of how we'd like you to proceed and those kind of things, I think that gives volunteers some parameters, right? It gives them an opportunity to figure out how to, measure whether they're successful or not. Because if we don't provide that as leaders, they're not going to know. They're not going to know whether they're successful or not. So we need to guide them in our expectations or goals or whatever we use to help them have a measuring stick by saying, okay, am I completing or am I fulfilling the desires of my role? And that's going to give them some great satisfaction as well, that when they're hitting those things, they know inside they're going, okay, I feel like I know what I'm doing, and I'm meeting the expectations. There's no hidden expectations for that. The third thing is find their level. What is their level? What do I mean by their level? I mean their level of interest, right? What is their level of interest in the youth ministry? If you want them to be successful, I am terrible at this. I always over-equipped, right? I gave somebody, say, look, they just wanted to come in and help do X, but I gave them all this other stuff that had nothing to do with anything, that, I wanted them to be at the same level I was. And most of the time, our volunteers are not on that level. They want this, whatever they want to do, they do. But they don't need my level. If you're a full-time guy or a part-time guy, or bivocational, it doesn't matter. Or even a volunteer, you have a certain passion level for being involved in this, and not everybody shares the same deep dive, concern that maybe I have. And so I have to, weigh that against finding what their level is. So not only am I looking for their level of interest or buy-in, if they have a very low interest in the sense of how much do they want to know, then I make sure that I try to keep them in roles and responsibilities that don't necessarily require them to go a deep dive into some of those things, right? They're not going to care about everything I'm going to care about. They're not going to care about, some cultural things or a song that's popular or a video that's popular. They're not going to care about some of those things. They're going to care about the kids, which that's the most important thing. They're going to care about the kids. The other thing is I find their level of not only interest of what they want to do, so I can put them in a place that's going to benefit them, but also their level of training. In other words, once again, measuring what their level of interest is. How much do you want to know? I mean, do you want to know how the teenage brain works? Do you want to know, 5 tips on how to have ask good small group questions, right? Those are various levels of things, and I, as their leader, try to find out what their level of commit is, and then what information I give them that's going to apply to them, right? There's some things I will give them that's an article or something that I think they should read, that I think would be helpful to them broadly. But then I find out specifically maybe what their level is that is going to help them if they're a small group leader, or if they are, they're doing media, or they are a Sunday school teacher, or or they're leading games, and maybe I'll send them a link to that. So I find their level, and then I don't try to overwhelm them. I don't try to overwhelm them with stuff that their brain isn't going to hold on to for very long, but what they need to know in the moment, and what they need to do to get their task done so they can fulfill the overall vision. So I just find their level, find where they're at, and then try to, don't give them too much and don't give them too little. Just kind of find out where their comfort level is, and challenge them maybe just a little tiny bit above that to kind of help them move it along. But find their level of interest, and find their level of what they want to know to do, how they can do their job best. And the last thing is this, Trent, is I make sure that I reward my volunteers. And whether that's handing out, I would hand out for 1 year. If they gave a 1 year commitment, I gave a plaque, right? If you gave me 1 year, I gave them like 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, right? If they're going to be with me, and I've had volunteers with me that long and have given away awards or plaques and things like that, because I think that's super important to you, affirming, and you and I affirming a volunteer's participation in your ministry. Some people work their volunteers like dogs and don't give them anything for it. Find what they like, right? If they're into Starbucks, make sure you give them a Starbucks card, right? We're getting into the holiday season. We're getting into Christmas. We're getting into Thanksgiving. Start planning now and saying, man, these volunteers are doing it. I'm so thankful for my volunteers. Can you find a way to thank them? That can be anything from super cheap to like, I'm going to write you a card. I'm going to create a meme, right? A funny meme and send it to you. To I'm going to at Christmas time give you a thing of your favorite coffee, or I'm going to, it's just your level of what you think you can give to your volunteers that they're going to be, that's going to keep them around, that they know that you appreciate them. And if we're showing appreciation, if we're showing them that we appreciate them, then they're going to hang around more. They're going to know that we care. It's not just about us getting them to do a task. It's about us doing life together so we can minister to kids and love on kids and show them the love of God, so that they're going to grow up with a relationship with the Lord. And that's us working together, volunteers and leaders and believers working together to minister. So find a way to reward your leaders in small ways, and then sometimes once a year, big ways, right? October is a Pastor Appreciation Month. It can be Volunteer Appreciation Month. You can do something once a week for them. Get your kids involved in appreciating them. Have your kids go and toilet paper their house and say, thank you. We love you. Here's a bunch of toilet paper to clean up. By the way, if you do that, you should have the kids clean it up the next day. Send them out the next day to go clean it up, or you go clean it up. But, simple things like that says, hey, the kids love you, we love you, thank you for your investment, and thank you for being a part. So, but that's it, guys. I have been on here for close to 30 minutes now. If you have any questions, now would be your time to ask them. But I have answered the 2 questions here that I had from Zalika and from Trent, and I want to thank you guys for submitting your questions. If you have questions, you can leave them in the comment section now, or when you watch this later on, you can watch it and let me know what your questions are, and I would love to do that for next Wednesday and talk about the different questions that you have about youth ministry, about life, about those kind of things, how to handle certain situations in ministry, that kind of jazz. That's what I love doing. So, but guys, thank you so much. I appreciate all of you that have hung around in here with me and listened and was a part. I hope that you join me next Wednesday. And also, I hope that you will subscribe. That if you're not a subscriber to this channel, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and be a part of this community. Would love for you to be a part of the community. So hit the little button down, the little bell down there. That will get you notified when these videos come live or when I go live. And when I post things and things like that. So I would love you to be a part of that, and I would hate for you to miss it. So go ahead and subscribe now, and you can click on my head over here somewhere, wherever this may come up. And you don't forget, if you want more information, or if you want to sign up for like my newsletter called the excuse me, the Youth Ministry Roundup, where I gather up all kinds of articles and information and videos that I think apply to youth ministry or apply to you as a person or a ministry. I will post those, and you get that every couple of weeks. And you can sign up at thediscipleproject.net, and you can go over there and check out other resources as well. So, but that's it for today, guys. Appreciate you guys hanging around, being a part, and I will catch you guys next time right here on Wednesday at 1. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.